Welcome to Mind Minutes. Ever feel like you're in a relationship or not really in a relationship?
Oh, absolutely. Like going through the motions, but the connection's just not there. It's almost like a performance.
Exactly. It's what psychology calls an irrelationship.
Irrelationship. Tell me more.
Well, it's this sort of pseudo-intimacy where you're together, but you're both avoiding true connection. Like, you do a couple of things, dinners, movies, but there's no real emotional depth.
Right, right. Like you're checking off boxes, but not truly sharing yourselves. Almost a fear of vulnerability. Kind of like a strategic partnership more than a loving bond.
Precisely. And ironically, it's a shared dynamic. Both partners are complicit in maintaining this distance. It's a defense mechanism, a way to avoid the messiness and potential hurt of real intimacy. Keeps things safe, you know?
Safe, but ultimately unsatisfying, right? Like living in an emotional bubble. It sounds exhausting.
Totally. And this pattern can even stem from childhood. If your parents weren't emotionally available, you might not have learned how to truly connect with others.
Yeah, you might even see it as the norm, like, oh, this is what love is supposed to be, detached. That makes so much sense, though.
And even our culture reinforces these ideas. Think about all the ads and movies that equate love with grand gestures or material things. It sets up unrealistic expectations.
It's like, just buy this diamond and everything will be fine.
Exactly. It simplifies love into a transaction, but it leaves you feeling empty. So what happens? Eventually, one or both partners start craving genuine connection. That's when the cracks appear, and the relationship often ends.
It's a setup for disappointment. But how do you break free from this pattern?
Well, first, recognize it. Examine your role in the dynamic. Start expressing your true feelings, even if it's scary. And be patient. It takes time to build real intimacy. It's like peeling back layers of emotional scar tissue to reveal the real you underneath. Vulnerable, yes, but essential for growth. Hmm.
So it's about embracing the messiness of real connection, right? Even though it might be a little frightening, it's definitely worth it. It's true what they say, courage isn't the absence of fear, but moving forward despite it.
So, we were talking about these irrelationships, right? Where you're kind of together, but not really together. It's like a phantom limb of a relationship.
Yeah, like you're playing the part, but the heart's not in it. It's almost like emotional kabuki?
Totally. And Brenner, Barry, and Beatty really nailed it in their work on dysfunctional relationships and codependency. It's like we learn these patterns early on, right?
Oh, absolutely. If you grow up seeing unhealthy relationship dynamics, you kind of absorb them as normal, like, oh, this is just how it is. It's almost insidious.
Right? And then you end up recreating those patterns in your own life. It's like an unconscious script you're following. Hmm.
Exactly. You're drawn to what's familiar, even if it's not healthy. You're like, oh, this detached feeling, this emotional distance feels right, even though deep down it's totally wrong.
It's crazy, right? And then you have these amazing studies like Acevedo and companies' work on the neural correlates of romantic love. It shows how powerful those brain chemicals are. It's like a drug. It messes you up.
So you're saying that even though you know it's not good for you, your brain is still chasing that initial high. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And then Chen's work on transference just adds another layer to the whole mess, doesn't it? Like you're projecting your past experiences onto your current partner. Baggage City.
Oh, so you're saying you're not even relating to the actual person in front of you, but to a ghost of relationships past?
Exactly. It's like you're trying to rewrite history through your current relationship. It's a recipe for disaster, and it all circles back to that core fear of vulnerability.
Hmm. It's like being truly seen is terrifying, so you create this illusion of connection, which is actually a wall. Ironic, isn't it?
So it's like we build these walls, right? These elaborate defenses against, real intimacy.
Totally. And ironically, those walls end up trapping us in a cycle of superficiality.
Exactly. It's like we're afraid of getting hurt, so we choose a comfortable numbness instead. But then we end up feeling empty.
It's a paradox, right? Like, in trying to protect ourselves, we actually end up sabotaging ourselves.
Right. And it's not like we're consciously doing it. It's, often subconscious. These patterns are ingrained from childhood, societal expectations, past relationships, the whole shebang.
Yeah, the whole shebang. It's like a perfect storm of dysfunction. And then you throw in the biological component, those neurochemicals, the dopamine hits, what was it, the transference thing?
Oh, yeah, Chen's work. The transference. It's like we're not even relating to the person in front of us. We're relating to a projection, a ghost of relationships past. Crazy.
It's like trying to fix a broken heart with a band-aid. It just doesn't work.
It's more like trying to fix a broken heart with a broken heart. It just compounds the problem, multiplies the the brokenness, you know?
Exactly. And then you have these authors, Fletcher, Simpson, and the whole crew, talking about pair bonding, then romantic love from an evolutionary perspective. Like, where does all this fit in, you know?
Right? Like, are we wired for this kind of surface level connection, or is it a glitch in the matrix?
Maybe it's a byproduct of our modern world. Too many choices, too much stimulation. It's overwhelming. So we retreat into irrelationships.
It's like emotional overwhelm leads to emotional shutdown, which leads to um, irrelationships, right? It's a vicious cycle. Hmm.
Totally. And Johnson's book, Love Sense, touches on this too, doesn't it? Like how we can rewire our brains for healthier connections.
Yeah, it's not all doom and gloom. We can break free from these patterns. It takes work, self awareness, courage, but it's possible.
It's about choosing vulnerability over that false sense of security. It's about embracing the messiness of real love. It's about being brave enough to be seen.
So we're diving deep into this whole irrelationship thing, right? Where you're technically in a relationship, but it's like a hollow shell.
Yeah, it's like you're going through the motions, checking the boxes, but, you know, the emotional core is missing, like a relationship zombie.
Totally. It's like a performance almost. You're playing the part, but the heart's just not in it. Um, it's like those dysfunctional relationship patterns, the codependency stuff, Brenner, Barry, and Beatty. They really hit the nail on the head with that, didn't they? Hmm.
Oh, absolutely. It all goes back to those early childhood experiences, right? You learn these unhealthy relationship dynamics and they become your normal. Like, oh yeah, detached and distant, that's love. So messed up.
It's insidious. You're unconsciously recreating those patterns. It's like you're drawn to what's familiar, even if it's toxic, right?
Totally toxic. And then you throw in the biological aspect, the neurochemicals, Aceveto's research on romantic love. Um, those brain chemicals are powerful. It's like an addiction.
Oh yeah, you're chasing that initial high, even though you know it's not healthy. It's like trying to quench your thirst with salt water, makes you even thirstier.
Exactly. And then Chen's work on transference. Oh, that's another layer, isn't it? You're not even relating to the actual person, but to a ghost of relationships past.
Right? You're projecting all your baggage onto your current partner. Baggage city, population, you and your ghosts. It's a recipe for disaster. Hmm.
Total disaster. It's like trying to build a future on a foundation of broken promises. It just crumbles.
It all comes down to that fear of vulnerability, right? Being truly seen is terrifying, so we build these walls, these elaborate defenses. It's ironic, isn't it?
Totally ironic. We're trying to protect ourselves, but we end up trapped in a cycle of superficiality. It's like emotional, solitary confinement.
And we're not even aware we're doing it. It's all, subconscious. These patterns are deeply ingrained from childhood, societal expectations. It's the whole shebang, like Fletcher and Simpson's work on pair bonding. How does that even fit into this mess?
Yeah, are we wired for these irrelationships, or is it a modern day malfunction? Too many choices, too much stimulation? It's overwhelming. So we retreat into emotional numbness. It's a paradox.
A total paradox. But there's hope, right? Johnson's love sense. We can rewire our brains, break free from these patterns. It takes work, self-awareness, courage, but it's possible. It's about choosing vulnerability over that false sense of security.
It's about embracing the messiness of real love, being brave enough to be truly seen. And on that note, folks, thanks for tuning in to My Minutes. Until next time, take care of yourselves and your minds.